everyone, and welcome to the Refinitiv Sustainability Perspectives podcast. This is Keisha Shreen, and today's guest is Cheryl McKissack Daniel. Cheryl is CEO of McKissack McKissack, the nation's oldest minority-owned, female-run construction firm. Now, McKissack specializes in construction management, program management, consulting, and compliance services. And just to give you a flavor, some of the firm's projects include the LaGuardia Airport building redevelopment, Barclays Center, and JFK Airport project, just to name a few. Cheryl, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Keisha.
We're so happy to have you. And, we want to talk definitely about governance and what your firm is seeing in that space, as well as a bit about sustainable construction. But before we get to that, I want to talk about your company's legacy, just in talking about the theme of governance, how your company and your family has managed to build and govern a firm that can trace itself back to the 1790s. Wow. Let's talk about that legacy.
Okay, you are absolutely right. It is almost 230 years, wow, which is quite incredible in this country, as you can imagine, as a Black family.
Yes.
The first descendant of our family came to this country in 1790 as a slave, and his slave master was William McKissack. That's why I have an Irish name, Irish, maybe Scottish, okay, name. And he was given the name Moses McKissack the first and taught the trade of making bricks. So Moses made bricks extremely well, to the point that we believe that he was allowed to be set free by his slave master and pretty much make bricks for sale. We know for a fact that he gave 365,000 bricks to the Cheers family in Spring Hill, Tennessee, because they built their mansion and it is still standing, currently owned by the Saturn Corporation. Now, Moses, his son was Moses McKissack the second. Now, the second was a master carpenter known for his spiral staircases and gingerbread finishes. I can just imagine, man, how was your week? I was perfecting gingerbread, finishes on homes. I mean, incredible, but that's what he did. Now, he had 7 girls and then 7 boys. He had to have those boys. And so my grandfather was the firstborn son. And because they had a name, every time they had a girl, his name is Moses Edward John Henry Lewis McKissack III.
Wow.
And his brother, Calvin. They incorporated our firm in 1905 in the state of Tennessee. And that was before there were architectural licensing laws. They were considered master builders. They would design their buildings and at the same time construct them. But the laws came into effect in 1920. So in 1920, they were forced to get architectural license or lose their business. So if you can imagine 2 Black men walking up to take their license in Nashville, Tennessee in the 20s, denied and denied and denied. They lobbied the board. They were able to get one board member to say, okay, we cannot prevent these guys from taking this exam just because they're Black. And so they were allowed to take the exam. You would think that was over then, but it wasn't. Then they were denied their license. Eventually, though, they were awarded their license and became the first Black licensed architects in the country, with license 117 and 118 in the state of Tennessee. And both of those original licenses hang in my office. So I'm extremely proud of that. And because they were the first Black licensed architects, they gained a lot of notoriety across the country. And so the board now takes credit for it and helps them get certified in 22 other states. It's an amazing American story about how, fortitude and perseverance and prayer can really come to light. These men work for Papa Doc. They traveled to Africa. They worked throughout the South and Northeast. If you can imagine having crews in Little Rock, Arkansas, or Tuskegee, Alabama, but living in Nashville and having to travel during Jim Crow and, segregation. So it's a very interesting story. The company was then passed down to my father, who was the youngest of 6 boys. And he, too, was an architect. And he expanded our business into healthcare. And he did a lot of higher ed. He worked probably at 19 historically black colleges and universities, including Meharry Medical School, where there are 10 buildings, and he designed 9 of those. When he became ill, he had a massive stroke 4 days before my twin sister and I graduated from college, and my mother had to step in and run the business. She has a master's degree in psychiatry, which is great for the phobias she had to deal with people who now had to deal with a woman at the helm. She expanded our business because she is very much a salesperson and a leader. But most of all, she was able to get myself and my 3 sisters back into the business. And now my twin sister has a separate company out of Washington, D.C., Chicago, and L.A. And I continued on the family business. Of course, my mother made me buy it. And we are in New York and in New York and in Philadelphia.
Great. And I mean, that's such an incredible story. And we're talking about governance and how a firm can build succession plans and how a firm can really build out its own infrastructure. And I'd love to hear your story about, taking the firm from generation to generation. And in the context of succession, where do you all go from here? What kind of plans are you making?
Yes. Early on, I'm sure they were not thinking, succession to at the degree that we think it today. I think then it was a struggle that brought a family close together. And so they worked through that struggle together. If you think about bigotry from slavery and, Jim Crow and segregation, how our family sustained all of, those, crazy days. I think that was very much part of our ability, to sustain ourselves over the years. Now it's a different day. And so sustainability for us in the future could go a lot of different ways. For me and the way I look at it, there are a couple of factors that I look at. Number one, when do I want to hang up my running shoes? And what is that going to look like for me to sustain the rest of my life, number one?
Or hang up your heels. I've seen your heels.
Hang up my heels. That's better. Hang up my heels and hard hat. What's that going to look like? I mean, you have to plan because ultimately it's coming whether you want it or not. And, to have a family business that's 5th generation, I really would like to see it continue. However, it doesn't have to continue with family. My kids, I don't know where they're going. They're 24, 25. And I have seen, especially when I have studied this area, the desire for the next generation to take over to the point that the company goes under because that generation is not ready. They're not the best leaders. They weren't indoctrinated the right way. They don't have the support of staff. A whole lot of reasons why the next generation may not make it. So I resolved to myself early on, it may not be my kids. It may be my grandkids. It may be a niece or nephew, but it may not be that either. So what do I need to do in case it's not that? So then that takes you to, I think, the very next important factor, and that is preparing staff for the future. You have to have a tremendous leadership team. And it's something that is strategic. It's not something that just evolves. It has to be strategic because I have seen also where family businesses have gone out and hired a president or they've promoted the wrong person. And usually that's a result of culture. that person does not understand the culture of the company, the vision of the company, and if they do, they haven't bought into it. And so at McKissack, I am very conscious and with a watchful eye of who in our company understands what we represent, and I mean to the core. And are they a leader for us in the future? And fortunately, we have a good group. I have a board, and we are in the process of training a young man right now to, progress as a leader for McKissack. We have him, and we have a couple of others who could fit that bill. And so that is very exciting to me, especially that he happens to be Black. But it takes buy-in from staff, number one, buy-in from clients, buy-in from all of your partners, your banks, your accountants, everyone who has helped you get where you are. They have to understand this vision. And so the transition takes a while. So that's just leadership transition. Now, what do you do with ownership? That's a whole nother story. Okay, so now that's when the family comes into play. What percentage do they get? What percentage does the staff get for them to perform and feel like they're a part of something? And that's our model. You are a part of something bigger than yourself. And so we give everyone the freedom to be creative and innovative in our company, but within our framework, which is a loose framework. We don't tell everybody you do step 1, 2, 3, 4. No. Here is the idea around what you're supposed to be doing. Now it's up to you to figure out how to get there. And I really like this culture in our company because it brings out of people their creativity and their innovation. Also, it allows them to grow as a manager, to make decisions, to make mistakes, and to understand why, something worked well, why something didn't work so well. And as a result, we're creating our leaders for the future. So we're looking at leadership on management, organizational structure side, and then ownership. How does that work? We don't have it all figured out. But of course, I'm not hanging up my heels anytime soon.
Not just yet.
Not just yet.
That's great. And so you raised a couple of issues. So one is the succession planning and having a watchful eye for who can step into roles, as well as engaging the board. And then you talk about culture and mission. What sort of resources, if I'm thinking about this in a step-by-step process, I have a business, I'm designing a governance plan for the first time, I need to think through succession, I need to think through my company's culture and the mission, I need to think through how I'm engaging the board. What sort of resources do I need? Is this an issue of, you talked about money, so how can we reward our people and really get them to buy into what we're doing here? Do I need external consultation? What resources do I need to take those steps to really build a good governance plan?
What's so interesting is, as a business owner, you are so busy working in the business that you forget about working on the business. So as I've decided to expand my national brand, and, there's a reason behind that, too. I've been drawn into a lot of panel discussions. And this year, one actually was on succession planning. And so I began to examine where I was with my business. But at the same time, of course, the internet is the first place you go. And that's where I found this great article. Actually, it was a guide, a 100-page guide from Deloitte. But from there, I have now engaged consultants. I, am doing an RFP right now because now I have a framework of what I want to do. I know that before I meet with them, that I need to understand what I want. I need to understand, the leadership role. I need to have the basis for them to start work. And so, yes, it's going to require some money. because, you get what you pay for. And I'm fine with that because you cannot put your head in the sand and act like this is not going to happen, because there is a succession coming whether you plan for it or not. And,
ready.
that's the bottom line.
Great. You have to be ready.
You have to be ready.
Yeah.
If, a lot of people aren't. So there goes the business.
Exactly. So moving from the governance piece to more of a sustainable design, sustainable construction conversation, just what you're seeing there. We know that sustainability in construction has been a part of the overall sustainability conversation for years. In fact, according to the Environmental Protection Agency, across the U.S., commercial buildings account for 38% of carbon dioxide emissions and 39% of total energy, mostly because of the energy required to heat and cool and power a building. What shifts are you seeing in terms of sustainable building, sustainable construction, LEED and green building? Are you seeing some things now happening that you didn't see a few years ago? And what do you expect to see coming down the road there?
Absolutely. I've been at this for 30 years. 30 years ago, there were no MWBE programs. There was no LEED.
Minority Business Women Enterprise.
Exactly.
Okay.
There was no designation for the state of New York. And so I remember when LEED first came out and, everybody saying green, what is that? And then you have the different levels, the silver, the gold, the bronze. And so, what I've seen now is that is a way of life for designers and in construction. And it's been driven, I think, by the consumers, because the owners are saying, we want to make a difference on the green footprint of the United States. The developers, so the individuals who are renting apartments, buying condos, they gravitate to buildings that are designed green. And the highest level is what they want. And so this has been driven by consumers. And now it's sort of a way of life. There was a period of time where, safety, which is huge in New York because of the size buildings that, we construct, wasn't the conversation as soon as you walk on a construction site. Now there's OSHA. Every meeting starts with safety first. And so now it's a way of life. And so, sustainability for our industry, I believe, is excellent. And it's just going to get better. We're getting more efficient with the use of technology. So there's a whole lot less waste. There's clash detection techniques that take place with BIM. So before structures go up, we're able to model them on computers. And looking at those computers, we can determine how much actual material we really need, instead of going out to the site, constructing, and realizing there's a tremendous amount of waste. And what do you do with the waste? A lot of it we can reuse now. And the green has now moved over to the construction industry, how we dispose of materials. So it's huge being part of the Barclay Arena. As you can see now, we have that beautiful green roof, which is, spectacular, which has increased, the green footprint. So I am very excited and hopeful and inspired by, the advances we're making in our industry to help this cause.
Great. You talked a bit about the Minority Women Business Enterprise, those initiatives that you've seen happen over the last several years. I know that you consult your clients in the area of compliance regulation as well as D&I. So what sorts of concerns do you see clients and just the overall population in the marketplace as having, and what's generally your advice? How do you consult them in terms of that sort of area as it relates to D&I, diversity and inclusion?
It is very interesting. I was in a panel yesterday, and people are accepting the fact that diversity makes money. So we are, our country is built on entrepreneurship, capitalism, and the minute that, capitalists understand that they are going to increase their profits by diversity, they jump on it. And the reason this is happening is because now you're getting more creative ideas from people that have a different perspective, whether they're women. We're seeing women in the construction industry tearing it up because they are so attentive to detail, and they are finding faster, better ways to progress things in the construction industry.
Do you see a lot of women in the construction industry?
It's getting a lot better.
Okay.
Absolutely. Now, do we need more? Yes, and we need more of the minority within the minority. Black women businesses are 2% in the construction industry in the city and state of New York. And so that is why I'm expanding my personal brand. I am going out to trying to reach and connect with the young women, especially Black and Hispanic women, to let them know that they can build wealth in the design and construction industry, and that the industry is huge. There are a ton of different areas that they can go in. And not only that, we're not boring. We can be glamorous. We can wear our heels and hard hats to work, and we can have fun. We can have a brand. We can be just like any other celebrity. And so I am very excited about that mission. We need more Blacks and Hispanics in our business, especially the women. And so when I speak, I focus on that. And so advising my clients, it's wonderful that we have grown several minority and women-owned business firms. So now we need to concentrate on the minority within the minority and not continue to just go back to the same firms we've been using over and over again. At a period of time, firms, have to progress to, a prime role where, they're competing dead on with majority firms. And we need to bring up the next level of firms to make sure that we expand, the pool. And that creates competition. But the best thing is it makes money.
Great. So Cheryl, tell us, what is the big idea? So what do you see happening in the construction space, in the sustainable construction space, or even in the governance space that you think will take us by surprise, that you see coming down the pipeline that maybe the rest of the marketplace doesn't see? What's the big idea for the future?
I think the big idea is going to be around technology. Construction is a big data issue. And so for years, however, the IT platform for the various disciplines who have to make a construction project work, so that's the architect, the engineer, the construction staff, all of our IT platforms are not connected. And so as they get connected, it will streamline these mega projects. If you think about it, in New York, 15 years ago, a $100 million project, or 10 years ago, a $100 million project was a big project. Today, it's not. Today, if it's not $1 billion, it's not considered large. And so the mega projects are just, increasing. We have LaGuardia. It's, $4.5 billion. LaGuardia Central Terminal. The Delta Terminal is almost $5 billion, right there at LaGuardia. JFK, with all its reconstruction, is $13 billion. We have the Port Authority bus terminal. What's that? $4 billion. And then we have the tunnel that should be built already. It was going to be 10 billion. That's now going to be 25 billion. So in the MTA capital program, we're finishing up a $32 billion capital program that McKissack actually oversees. And, the next one could be 50 billion. So these projects are bigger and we need better technology. When you go out to the field, you need to have a handheld. I mean, we have that, but it's not starting at design and then finishing out in the field. So it needs to be one platform that can, can handle the big data that we need to extract information that we need. And I think that's what's coming.
Right, technology changing the game in construction, changing the game in sustainable design.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Cheryl McKissack Daniel. It's so great to see you. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.